Hello everybody, welcome back to the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey the Tin Man Taylor, and today I thought I'd bring back what I started a few years ago, and I told you guys I was going to pick up the book reading stuff again. So I'm going to read 2 chapters out of They Saw Sasquatch, and they're very short. Okay, the first one's really short. So let's get to it, shall we? The first encounter happened at Jump Off Joe Creek area. And the date of the occurrence, October of 2011. So here we go. During deer hunting season in October of 2011, I had traveled to my favorite spot by flashlight. It was around 6:45 in the morning. I was near Horse Creek off of Jump Off Joe Creek Road. That's kind of a weird name for a road, isn't it? Anyway, Jump Off Joe. Anyway, I will not go into more directions because I have hunted there for years and it's a good spot if I ever go back again. Wanted to reach my stand before sunup. I was walking fast but as quiet as I could. It was still dark in the canyon and the old road had puddles in the ruts. I hate those. You go over them and boom, rattles you a little bit. But anyway, the ground was wet from the night's rain, but I wasn't making noise, and it was just getting light enough that I only needed light on the path before me. When all of a sudden, something moved up ahead, and I thought, oh no, somebody's at my spot. And I turned my light on him, but it wasn't a man. It was a tall animal with blackish brown fur all over it, and it walked hunched over. It crossed the trail and cut into a heavy stand of trees at a fast walk. I'm sure that it saw me, but it didn't seem to be running, just walking with huge steps. Yeah, that would creep me out if I saw that, but anyway, if it ain't running like a normal human, then that's out of this world. But anyway, it never even looked back, so I don't know what its face was like because I kept the flashlight on it and I was so shook up I didn't even call out. Glad you didn't, because he might have come near you. But anyway, it was a lot taller than my 6'3" and would probably have been close to 300 pounds or more. That's a big one. Anyway, I cautiously looked around the spot where the animal crossed the road, but the only thing resembling a footprint was a large flat print in a bare spot that was filling with water. I know it had to be about half again, as large as my hunting boot, which means it may have been a size 14. I used to wear a size 14, but I wear a size 15, which I've never ever even seen. Anyhow, I didn't see or hear anything, including a deer, and I spent about 5 hours on the edge of a spare glen without even a sound. So I carefully walked out before dusk and went home. I never told anybody but the wife, but I quit hunting that area. Dave L. of Glendale, Oregon. Alright, that was the first story. Yeah, I wouldn't blame them either, because if I saw something like that, I don't know if I would go back in that area. It might get me. Anyway, I'm going to take a break and then go to the second story that's in here. Alright, here's the second encounter. June of 2010. Rogue River Trail. My wife and I spent a fun 2 weeks in your area, and before we returned home, we wanted to hike down your beautiful Rogue River for a ways. Our goal is to move there permanently once we are able to retire, as we have friends who live in the area. It was just past China Gulch on our way toward Whiskey Creek Cabin where the strange feelings began. It started as one of those subconscious thoughts more than anything that makes one look behind to see if someone else is following on the trail. As I looked behind me and then up at the steep slope above, my eyes met my wife's gaze as she was the first to speak, saying, "What do you see?" I answered, "Nothing. Why do you ask?" She admitted to also having a feeling of being watched, and she said it had begun back at the steep gully we had just passed, and they put in parentheses China Gulch. But she hadn't thought anything more of it until I started looking around. We just assumed that there was probably a deer or some other forest dweller nearby. Yeah, others dweller, more like a Bigfoot, stealthy Bigfoot, anyway, and continued our trek. We planned to take some time to look around a Whiskey Creek cabin and camp off the trail further on. We had purposely planned our hike for early enough in the season to be well ahead of the day hikers, and having embarked from the Grave Creek boat landing, we were the only car there. For this reason, we knew there was no hikers ahead of us on the trail. But around the next bend, we saw someone in what seemed like a dark brown coat, and they cut down the sharp trail at Rainy Falls. Dark brown coat, huh? More like fur, but anyway. There's the pictures that they took. I think that's where they were talking about the Gulch and then that whiskey cabin. By the time we arrived at the trail downward, there was no one in sight. The trail downhill was wet and slick, so we decided against a stopover, but I was curious as to how this person had so quickly disappeared from sight before we arrived. At the start of the steep trail downward, I was looking at the slick path for a sign of hiking boots or shoes, but all that appeared were 3 large depressions that were spaced far apart in the wet, slick, muddy trail, as if made by an extremely tall person. Yeah, extremely tall person. Who would be out there in the middle of the woods, barefoot and all that stuff? There were no signs of a tread on a sole, just fairly deep prints, and the front of each one was cut like animal claws in the front of the clearest of the 3. So now we really got curious. Our first thought was that a bear had been there earlier and that the other hiker had scared it away. First of all, I understand you thinking about a bear with claws, but come on, really. It's a Bigfoot. Then the reality hit. If that were the case, then where were the other hikers' prints? Exactly. Okay. There wasn't none. Anyway. Also, those prints were larger than the local population of black bears could make. I guess them to be about 6 inches longer than my 10.5 hiking boots. It's more like a size 16, 17. Woo, that's big. Now, in discussing this, my wife felt uncomfortable about proceeding until we had satisfied our curiosity. So we carefully and quietly began a descent toward Rainy Falls, keeping a wary eye out for surprises. I would be too. I was not scared because I'm always armed with a .357 Magnum revolver. There you go. Right there. That'll put a lot of lead into them. Anyway, when hiking, just in case, but still, we weren't looking for trouble. Just answers. I know that carrying a handgun in another state is taboo, but I keep it in my pack for emergencies. As we're near the bottom, where the trail was about to become more level, we were suddenly both drawn to an area ahead where the thick brush was violently shaken. And we heard a weird sound, almost like a cough or growl, and a shaking of a tall, dead snag that caused several higher branches to fragment and fly in all directions. And as we backed off, whatever it was went crashing up the almost vertical hill toward the main trail above. Yeah, you probably startled in, and he's trying to distract you to get you out of the area. But then he saw you backing up. He just decided to get on out of there. But anyway, we returned to the trail where we had come from, and now we were faced with knowing that this thing was back on the trail between us and Whiskey Creek. We had by now concluded that this was not a hiker in a brown coat. You'd think I would have concluded that by now myself. But anyway, but something other, and that other was still in the direction we wanted to go. We chose to return to Grant's Pass and head home the next day, as we didn't have anything to prove by running into what we both agree must be a Bigfoot. Yes, I agree. We look forward to reading our story in your next book. And when they mean by that, they were talking about the author of this book compiling all the stuff together. And the guy's name is Zachary from Redding, California. And here's a picture of the pass they were coming through. But anyway. Alright. Those were 2 Bigfoot encounters out of the They Saw Sasquatch book. Done and dusted. Now, I'm going to be starting all this back up in the ghost books as well. So, hope you guys stay tuned for those videos. And don't forget to like, subscribe for more book reading content like this. As always, this has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey the Tin Man Taylor. And I say, that's a wrap. And have a nice day. And if you're ever in the woods, always look around your surroundings. You never know if a Bigfoot or dog man or something would come out and scare you or whatever. But always be prepared. Have a nice day, everybody.